I want you to think about a time where you were just extremely angry, right? No matter what it could be about, but like real anger. Like just you're kind of shaking. You may even cry a little bit. You just don't understand. You're just really, really tore up about it. And how does that make you feel? You know, do you feel drained afterwards? Do you feel kind of wore out? Do you feel, oh, just, I don't know if you do, but I do. Now, think about a time when you got angry because of another person, because of something that someone said, something that someone did, what have you. And regardless if that person actually did something that warranted that anger or that hatred or what have you, whether you believe it or not, you're giving that person power over your feelings and emotions and thoughts. And they have control over you when that happens. Now, that is a huge part about this woke culture, okay? I'm talking about wokeness. And I don't if you haven't heard the phrase or the term woke, it essentially is a progressive culture mannerism feeling that is very uh, tolerant and is all about um, making sure that you're acting in a very progressive and tolerant manner. And it really my first video on outrage and cancel culture ties in hand with the woke culture. So, for instance, um, if you if you say or do something that isn't woke, so for instance, you say you don't believe or understand uh, trans rights, trans people, trans what have you, or uh, you don't believe or agree with safe spaces for people. That feeds into you. You're not woke. You're not woke enough. You haven't woken up. And that's how you get canceled. That's when people get outraged. How, especially if you're in a place like LA or New York or somewhere that is a center for cultural thought and advancement. If you say something that is against the normal woke culture, you can get canceled for that. So it's really difficult to explain what wokeness is unless you've seen it or experienced it or um, just gotten a lot of that. Like you've heard of it a lot. Um, you can Google it. You can look up. There's a guy named James Lindsay. He has a website called, I want to say, News Discourse, that outlines and describes and defines a lot of the terms that are used in woke culture. And you can kind of get a better background on what that is. It's really hard to explain. There's some things that you know what it is when you see it or hear it, but it's very difficult to explain. And I'm sure that you've encountered some things like that. But the whole point of this is to talk about how ridiculous woke culture is. And if you watching this live in a place like that's a little bit more rural, so a lot of places like where we live in Tennessee, Cookeville, Crossville, Baxter, Sparta, the Tri Cities in Tennessee, places like that, you don't really encounter woke culture much. So you may think it's not a big deal. It's not something that I ever have to deal with. So it's not a big deal. And on one hand, I understand that because we're all living our lives in the places that we're at. But on the other hand, you got to understand that the places where this woke culture is propagated and where it's popular are the places that are driving culture and cultural change and societal change within our country. Places like Crossville and Cookeville, Tennessee aren't driving culture. They're not driving change within the country. But LA and New York and places like that, they're driving the change that we see within our culture for the most part when it comes to the whole United States in general. Now, stuff that happens in LA and whatnot isn't going to affect people in Crossville a whole lot very quickly, but eventually it's going to filter down. So, for instance, Terry Crews, I think it was last night, was talking with Don Lemon on wonderful CNN. And Terry Crews, if you don't know who Terry Crews is, he's the super buff guy who used to do the Old Spice commercials that played all of the instruments with the electrodes hooked up to his different muscles. He bounces his pecs a lot. He played on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's a black guy. And he was talking with Don Lemon, another black guy, about how he, Terry Crews, doesn't really support the BLM, Black Lives Matter movement. He supports Black Lives Matter, but he doesn't really support the movement because it's not focused on. They just want a piece of fuzz. I saw that through the camera. He doesn't support the foundation or the movement because it's not about. It's becoming less and less about Black Lives Mattering and more about defunding police and tearing down statues and changing. If you look up some of the core tenets of the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, they have neo-Marxist ideals and they don't like the traditional family structure. You know, two parents and kid or multiple kids. And so he was talking about, I don't support that. Like, if you look at the stats, and there's been multiple people that have talked about this that are black or African American or however you decide to say it, that talks about the importance of having a two-parent household when it comes to the future of that child. When it comes to incarceration rates, suicide rates, education levels, all of that sort of stuff. And so he's like, when did this movement morph from caring about police brutality and that sort of thing into this other thing? But that's getting a little bit off topic. And he was not being woke because he was going against what the mantra that he, as a black person, should be championing. And that's the problem with wokeness. It's cultish in the form that if you go against what everyone is saying or going against the norm, you're not woke. And you can get canceled for that. And people like Terry Crews that have a large acting career and do all these other things, he could get canceled for not being down with the Black Lives Matter movement because he's not woke enough. Okay? Or Halle Berry, I just saw, was talking about playing a trans man in a movie, faced massive backlash for that, and decided not to. And that feeds into the cancel culture and outrage and all that sort of thing. But she wasn't woke enough because as an actor, your job is to act out different roles. Okay? And so everybody's getting mad. Well, why don't we have a trans person play that role? How dare you? You're not trans. You're a straight, normal, apologies, I'm not being woke when I'm saying normal person as opposed to whatever. But the point is that she's an actor. That's what she does. But the woke crowd said, "Oh my gosh, how dare you?" And who knows how that's going to play out for her. I can guarantee it's not going to be good, though. Could you imagine getting upset at someone or something day in and day out because you're woke and because people aren't buying into whatever you feel is culturally or societally appropriate? Your job is to scream and yell at those people and to break them down, because I can't think of a time where I've seen someone that's woke or that propagates whatever they believe in that can have a nice, normal adult conversation. It's always screaming, it's always flaming, it's always canceling, it's always getting outraged and just losing their mind. Now, if someone can't have a normal adult conversation about something that they're passionate about or feel is an injustice or something like that, and all they can do is get angry or anonymously leave hate on someone else's post or send it to them over an email or a text message or something on Twitter, is your position really that defensible if you can't be an adult? If you're in your 20s, late 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, there are people that are twice my age that can't have a normal conversation with someone with a differing opinion. And why is that? Personally, I think it's because they don't have a defensible position. Because why else do you need, if you're so upset about something that you're trying to change someone's opinion, is screaming at them and trying to cancel them going to change their opinion? No, you're beating someone into submission and trying to get them canceled because they don't agree with you. Very, very mature of you. Well done. You're really changing the world in a positive way, aren't you? When, colleges and universities used to be the center and the pinnacle of intellectual thought, achievement, and forward thinking in our country. That's always what they've been for. That's always what they've been about. Speaking and discussing ideas and learning things and pushing human progress forward. That's what universities and colleges are supposed to be for. You're supposed to go and learn new things to build yourself into a better, more productive person in society, and to exchange ideas and grow as people and learn and build new things. Now, when did we go from that, where being in a university and doing that sort of thing changed into safe spaces and make sure you use my proper pronoun, or I'm going to get you investigated for hate speech or discrimination. And if you go against whatever I say, you're going to get shut down by other people with my opinion. We're going to scream at you. We're going to cancel you. We're going to follow you around. We're going to get we're going to get the Board of Internal Affairs to investigate you for hate or whatever. Especially when you're talking about the sciences. The whole point of science and everything that we've learned since the scientific theory was invented, I don't have a date for that, but it's been a long time. The whole point of the scientific theory is to come up with a hypothesis. So come up with your idea and test it. And test it and test it and test it and test it. Present your results. And then since you use the scientific theory, you've put down everything that you've done, and it should be able to be replicated. Well, if another scientist tries to replicate whatever you've done and they can't replicate your results and your findings, then they'll say, this is what happened, and I disagree with these findings for XYZ. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what the problem is, and let's be scientists. Let's be adults. Let's figure out what we need to do with this. That's how science works, okay? So that's how you push human progress forward. You communicate, you learn new things, you come up with theories, you try things, and then you have other people that try the same things, that look into it, and you have discourse, you have communication, and you eventually get to the point where you've figured it out, and you have a rock solid theory that turns into a law of nature or thermodynamics or physics or psychology or what have you. That's how it works. It's discourse, it's disagreement, and it's figuring things out. Well, if you can't object to whatever the status quo is, then how do we move forward? If you're getting shouted down for having a differing opinion because you're not woke enough, and someone that is woke enough says that you're wrong, and you start getting canceled and all that, then people are going to start being afraid to state their opinions, even if it's something that's absolutely crazy. So for instance, personally, the 5,000 different genders and pronouns that we have, they just came out with all these new pronouns like Z, and like literally spelled like ZE, and CHI, and just all these different random pronouns that you can call people, and all these different genders that are now coming out, and all this, that, and the other. Your DNA, you have chromosomes in your DNA. And one of your chromosomes, I don't remember if it's 22nd or 23rd. I'm pretty sure it's the 22nd. It doesn't matter which one it is. You can look it up. But I'm not going to take the time to Google it. You either have an XX or an XY. 99% of us that went through the American education system and actually paid attention, you know that one of those makes you a man and gives you a penis. The other one makes you a woman and gives you a vagina. That's how it works. Every single species is either male or female. And it's not always the same specific chromosome, but you do have one specific part of your DNA that makes you a man or a woman. That's how it works. It's science. It's factual. It's been known for years and years and years and years and years. Okay? Well, now this all comes along. And we're getting into gender fluidity. And I was born a man, but I feel like a woman, so I actually am a woman. And all of that sort of thing. Now, if you feel that way, if you feel like you're a man in a woman's body and you want to have your sex organ chopped off and go under hormone therapy, personally, I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense to me. You have an XY chromosome because you're a man. I gotta check this just to make sure, because I don't want to get them backwards, but I'm pretty sure XY is a man. Yeah, XX is female, XY is man. God bless you. You live in America, you're entitled to your opinions and your feelings, go for it. But at the end of the day, if you have an XY chromosome, through biology, you are a man. That's how it works. That's how it works. But if I say that, and I'm a famous person, or I hold public office, or what have you, in 20 or 30 years, when I'm running for office, and somebody drags up this video and says, Adam, you said that someone with an XY chromosome has to be a man. Well, this blah, 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 blah. I'm not woke, and I'm going to get shouted down and canceled, and I probably won't win my election. Now, if I'm living in Tennessee, hopefully in 20 years, Most people in Tennessee will still have the same opinion that if you have an XY chromosome and you're born a man, then you're a man. But some people don't. But I can't disagree with that. Because if I disagree with that, or if I say, well, let's look into it further, or the biology and the science says, I'm sorry, but if you have an XY, you're a man, I'm going to get shouted down. I'm not going to be able to go against that. If I'm a scientist, I'm going to lose all my research grants. I'm going to lose my funding. I'm going to possibly lose my teaching job at my university. If I teach at Harvard and I say, if you got XY, you're a man, I could get fired. And then I'm never going to get hired again at another Ivy League university. I'm going to get blacklisted because I wasn't woke enough. Because I wasn't willing to say, no, I don't believe in that. I believe that if you have an XY, you're a man. If you have an XX, you're a woman. That's it. Now, you can feel however you want. But at the end of the day, biologically, you are a man or a woman. But I can't say that. If I disagree with tearing down all these statues, if I disagree with erasing our history, I'm not woke. Because I'm not with this whole cultural shift that's happening. Look at all these actors and actresses and famous people, musicians, what have you. If you live in the limelight and you aren't woke, if you're outspoken in your ideas that aren't woke, good luck making it, okay? Good luck. You're not going to. If you're outspoken in that, you have got to be the most talented, otherwise spotless and impeccable individual to get past the wokeness brigade. How are these people happy with their lives? Just sitting on Twitter all day long. How dare this person not agree with me? I'm getting so angry and so upset. I'm just, How are you happy? Do you seriously enjoy your life being so pent up with anger and frustration and hatred that you just spend all day, every day yelling at other people for not having the same ideas as you? And when did America stop being America? When did we all stop being Americans? We're all Americans. Why are we so okay with continuously dividing and segregating and dividing and dividing and dividing constantly? How in the last 10 years, 15 years, have we gone from men and women to so many different genders? And I know that there's a difference between gender and sex, okay? Like, if you want to say that, whatever, more power to you. Personally, I believe they're the same thing. You're a man or a woman. That's your gender, that's your sex. That's what it is. If you don't agree with that, I would love to have a conversation with you about it. If you want to start talking about the definitions of words, and then that's your reasoning, whatever. Okay, fine. But first it was men and women. And then it was men that felt like women, so they were trans, so they became women or whatever. And then it's men that felt like women but didn't do this and did that and the other. And then before you know it, within the last 5 or 6 years, there are so many different sexual orientations and persuasions and different kinds of sexes and genders you can be. And it's dividing and dividing and dividing. There's that being all divided up, and then there's everything that you hear on the news. There's just constant division. How are people going to be happy if every single person you see on the street is in some different kind of group than you? Can we just all be Americans for once? Like, seriously, what happened since 9/11 when everybody loved everybody in America? When we all realized how something freaking terrible happened and how disgusting it was that we got attacked like we did by these freaking cowards from the Middle East, that we all came together and we said, damn it, we're Americans and we love this country and we're going to defend it, to now we can't even celebrate July 4th like we want to. We can't even go to this beautiful monument in South Dakota called Mount freaking Rushmore and band together and say that's a beautiful monument to some men who gave everything for their country to be presidents and push us forward as far as possible and create our national park service and do all these things, and we can't even celebrate July 4th like we want. We have to, you're either pro-American and pro-July 4th or you're anti, and oh my gosh, we're gonna say no fireworks in California. And what happened even since last year? Everybody was down with July 4th. We're going to grill hot dogs and hamburgers and drink beer and go out on the lake and have a good time and celebrate this amazing freaking country that we live in because we had the freedom to do so. And now all of a sudden, we're even canceling July 4th because it's not woke enough, because the people that signed our country into being and literally signed their own death warrants had slaves or weren't woke culturally. Or what is happening? Do you guys seriously understand what's happening with this? Are your eyes open? Have you woken up to the ridiculousness that is wokeness? People are trying to divide and tear our country apart, and it's piggybacking off this wokeness and cancel culture bullshit. How are you okay with seeing this stuff happening and not getting angry? I don't get it. I'm so irritated. Why? What is happening? Why aren't we all Americans with different opinions now? That we can discuss those different opinions, that we can go to a university or a college and learn different things and meet new people and meet different people with differing opinions and have adult conversations about that and get to a higher level of understanding and being so we can grow and be better adults. We can't do that anymore. If you disagree with how someone is living their life for whatever reason, and you want to have a thoughtful discussion about it and maybe gain some empathy and try to understand why they act that way or feel that way, and God forbid, become more tolerant because you understand that, you can't though. Because you disagree in the first place and you're not woke enough, so you can't even have that conversation because you're going to get shouted down and canceled and investigated. What the hell are we doing, guys? Seriously. I don't understand it. Why are we so divisive? Why do we have to shout down people and cancel people with different opinions? Why is it only the people that are woke are the ones that are allowed to have an opinion? Why is it that the woke people are the only ones that are allowed to scream and cancel people and just be completely rude and disgusting to other human beings, and it's totally fine? What, because they're a cultural warrior? They're a keyboard warrior? They're really making this world a better place by shutting down opinions different to their own? What's the freaking point of the First Amendment if we can't even use it? If I can't speak my mind and my thoughts because I accidentally stepped into a room that's a safe space and I upset someone's feelings and I'm getting investigated, are we really abiding by our First Amendment rights? Think about it. Think about it. What's going on, guys? Are we cool with this? Are we cool with being divided like we're being? That we're just being segregated into all these little groups? All these little minute, just bullshit, just stupid reasons to hate each other? Are you okay with getting shouted out for not being woke enough? For not jumping on the bandwagon of whatever they're upset about today or this week? It's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. How can we advance as a society and as a civilization if we can't even discuss why we disagree with each other or how we disagree with each other? How? Oh, that's right, you can't. You can't. We're never going to get where we can be if we can't even have different opinions and be adults and talk about it. You're not. It's not going to happen. I'm so irritated. I'm going to need to go drink some tea. 30 minutes. If anything, I hope it was at least entertaining watching me get worked up about this garbage. I didn't mean to start cursing like I did, but honestly, guys, how oh, I'm sorry. Guys and girls and every other group that you may belong to. I'm sorry for not being woke enough and using your correct pronoun or what have you. Let me know what you think. Am I on point with this? Does anybody feel this same way? Does anybody get irritated by being divided like this or being yelled at because you didn't use the correct pronoun or didn't support the right group at the right time for the right reasons? Whatever. It's freaking stupid. I really appreciate if you watch this. If you feel the same way, let me know. If you feel differently, let me know. Hopefully we can have a nice adult conversation about it. I'd love to. I genuinely would. Maybe there's something that I'm totally missing, but I don't know what it is. So, whatever. Forget it. Have a great day. Let me know. I hope everybody had a safe, happy July 4th and shot off plenty of fireworks and remembered how amazing this country is and how incredible what we actually have is. And remember that there's people that, whether you want to believe it or not, they're trying to tear it apart. You can sit in Crossville, Tennessee, or Cookeville, Tennessee, or Baxter, Tennessee, or Tri-Cities, Tennessee, or Alabama, or Florida, or Kentucky, or Virginia, or Texas, or wherever you want to sit and say, I don't see it, so it can't be happening. And before you know it, it's happened and it's too late. I'm done. Let me know what you think. Love you guys.